Hi, it's Ursula from ursula-smith.com, and today I'm going to do a different take on a project I did earlier. So in this one I used molding paste over a stencil and a piece of cardstock and ended up with a quick take 5 minutes or less project, at least to start it. And so I put a stenciled cutout from Yupo paper over the cardstock, ran some molding paste over it, took it off, and then let it dry, and then came back in with inks. And that gives a cool look. It's very textural, kind of thick. So I was wondering if I use something thinner like a matte medium or gesso. The same idea is really more for the cutout, because the cutout's made from Yupo paper, which is very slick. It's made from polypropylene. So I wanted to add something on top that would give it some tooth, so that if I came over it with dye-based inks, anything that's kind of water-based, it would stick. So I'm going ahead and I'm using, this is really old, I don't even know if they still make it anymore, but it's just gesso. You can use golden or Liquitex or any kind of gesso. I originally was going to try matte medium. I think this is a little bit thicker, so I'm going to go ahead and try this. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to take it over the top. And in the last video, I said I was going to use a bigger scraper, but I'm going to use, since this is here, I'm going to go ahead and try and use the same thinner scraper. The other thing I could do is put repositionable tape on this cutout and keep it down a little bit nicer so that the underlying leftover image would be a little bit crisper, but I'm not going for perfection here. This is really kind of an experiment, so sorry. I'm trying to do this and film it at the same time. I'll come back and fix my fingerprints in a minute. So, and I'm probably going to leave some of the brush strokes because I kind of like that look. And then I'm going to find my tweezers, and lift up the cutout, and then let that dry. And I might try and get rid of some of the lines on the cutout. And so I'm just going to let that dry, and I will color it when I come back. See you in a few. Hi, I'm back, and the gesso has mostly dried. And so what I'm doing is trying to reuse just a piece of cardstock that I had sprayed on in the other project. I'm going to try and save this part by putting my cardstock on top of that, and then I can get the image underneath the spray that I'm using now. So I'm going to go ahead, even though there's a spot that's still a little bit wet, and I'm going to first come just with a little bit of the Distressed Oxide sprays in Mermaid Lagoon and Shady Shutters. I'm just going to spritz a little. And remember, with the Distress Oxides, you want to clean the pump off before you put the cap back on. So I'll do the rest later. Now I'm going to come with some of the Mermaid Lagoon. And then I'm going to take just the regular Distress spray stains, just the dyes. I'm going to spritz some of that on top. And that is, again, Mermaid Lagoon. I'm going to do a little bit of Bundled Sage. And then maybe a little bit of peeled paint. And you can see some of the spots where I missed with gesso. I might come back over with a little of the Rusty Hinge Distress Oxide. It's kind of looking like a mess right now, but we'll see how it dries. And when it does, I will be back. Hi, I'm back, and it looks like it's mostly dry. There's a little spot there that's still wet. And it did look like it dried really light. I did use a lot of the Distress Oxide, so I think that's why it's light, plus on top of the gesso, which was really thick. I'm trying to decide if I like that look. I do, kind of. But I may spray a little more. And then this is kind of interesting. It looks almost like a crackle. So I don't know if that's doing it because the gesso's not sticking super well to the Yupo paper. Again, kind of went a little bit heavy. Probably that's where it's crackling. So what I may do is pull a little bit of color. I may just do the Distress stain. So I'm going to spray some Rusty Hinge. Maybe I'll bring some in here too. I'm trying to decide. I really like this background there. Maybe I'll bring some up here. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll do my little trick where I'm just taking a piece of something plasticky. It could be the top of an ink pad or Tupperware or whatever. And then bringing a brush. And then I can kind of paint some of this color on. And that way I can save the parts that I really kind of like. Okay, I think that's good. I think this actually was a dirty brush, so I'm probably pulling in some of the brown that I had used before. So I think I'm gonna leave it like that. There. And I'm going to let that dry, and hopefully that will add a little bit deeper color, and then I will be back. So I'm back, and this has not completely dried, but I wanted you to see that it really still seems like it's drying very light. So I either have to use something different over the top, like maybe diluted paint if I want it a little bit deeper, or I'll just have to keep going back over and over and over again. So I may just leave it light. I don't mind it. This will dry down a little bit. And then this piece seems actually like it's going to be a little bit darker. And so even if I wanted to layer, that would look okay. But again, I probably will just use this as a background and use this separately for something else. So I actually liked the molding paste a little bit better. I liked the texture. I liked the deepness of the color on that. So probably will stick with that. And if I want it a little bit smoother, just kind of smooth it out a little bit more with a bigger spatula. Maybe I'll try a different gesso, because it could have been that gesso. It was really, really thick. So I may keep experimenting this with this technique, and I'll videotape it and we'll see where it goes from there. So anyway, thanks for joining me today. See you next time. Hi, I'm back, and so I wanted to show you the final results of my gesso experiment. So this was the original one that I did using the this old one that I'm not even sure is being sold anymore. And I went over it with a couple of layers of the Distress Oxide and Distress spray stains. So it did come out a little bit darker, and I actually don't mind the values in the final result of this one. And then just for grins and giggles, I decided to try using the Liquitex gesso, which I think is the only one that I actually have. I don't have another brand. And I basically did the same thing, and you can see the values are still lighter. And when I say lighter, I mean lighter in comparison to what I had using the light molding paste. So still kind of worked the same. It accepted the spray stains without it rolling off. And again, just for refreshing, I'm using the Distress spray stains and the Distress Oxide sprays. So lighter values with the gesso, which is fine. So now I can make a determination if I want more texture and heavier color coverage. I would use the light molding paste. Lighter, I would probably go with the gesso, and I could probably still keep adding and get it eventually to a darker color. I could use paint, obviously, and that will come out darker. But the whole point of these experiments was mostly to make sure that the Yupo paper would hold on to a dye-based medium. So anyway, just gives you a little bit of ideas of two different products you can use, especially if you're using the Yupo paper because it cuts so well on the silhouette. So once again, thanks for joining me, and see you next time.